I'm Maya Vamrasam, the Delaware Riverkeeper. We've come to Boston today as part of our Shale Truth Interview series to consider the implications of exporting liquefied natural gas from the United States to other countries. There's mounting evidence to demonstrate that engaging in LNG exports is harmful to the U.S. economy and to our environment. I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Elizabeth Stanton, senior economist with Synapse Energy, a consulting firm that considers energy and environmental issues. Dr. Stanton is also a research fellow at the Global Development and Environment Institute at Tufts University. Are you aware of any comparative analysis that's been done where the costs and benefits of shale gas development, including LNG exports, has been lined up against the costs and benefits of truly sustainable energy options like solar, wind, etc.?
No, I'm not.
Do you think that that kind of assessment would be important or of value to politicians that are having to make decisions about how we invest in our energy infrastructure for the future?
Oh yes, I think that's enormously valuable. And I think too often we're trying to make these decisions about energy in sort of a constrained universe. We say, can we put these environmental controls on coal plants? Can we put this environmental control to prevent LNG exports? And we compare it to other options within coal or within gas or fossil fuels in general, whereas a much better analysis would be to compare what those costs and benefits are and how that looks to us as a society against what other options we have more generally, to look at that against energy efficiency, to look at it against renewable options, and consider a broad spectrum of choices that we have.
There's currently a debate going on about the cost to the nation of each ton of carbon that's emitted. And so in the past, the government has used a value of $21 per ton of carbon emitted. And more recently, in a regulatory analysis, the administration has talked about $36 per ton being the right figure. The British government has talked about $47 a ton for the coming years, and industry has talked about figures that are even higher, as much as $80 a ton by the year 2040. I was just wondering, as an economist, if you can explain to us why this figure, this cost for each ton of carbon emitted, is important when we're thinking about the energy issue.
Well, the particular numbers that you're talking about is something called the social cost of carbon. And the idea of it is that for a new ton of carbon that I'm emitting in a given year, say this year, that ton of carbon today and going out into the future, because it stays in the atmosphere, lingers with us for a long time, will cause damages around the world. And the social cost of carbon is meant to be an estimate of those damages. So if I didn't emit that ton of carbon, what sort of damages to infrastructure, to people's livelihoods, and so on, could I avoid? And the estimate that an interagency working group that included EPA and a lot of other agencies came up with a couple years ago was $21. Now they've brought it up to, is it 35 in the current year or something like that, right? This is actually something that I've done a fair amount of research on, and the idea of it is a very important one, that when we're making decisions about our federal regulations, you could say this about other kinds of regulations too, that we want to be making a fully informed decision. And the way that this is so commonly done in the United States is through a cost-benefit analysis. We want to be able to know what kind of costs are going to occur because of our actions. And so we want to include in that, if we're going to cause more emissions, to include that as a cost. If a particular action, like an environmental regulation, is going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, then we want to call it a benefit of the avoided costs of damages around the world from climate change, and to include that value in our analysis as best we can. And this is the number that's offered to us to use that. So on the one hand, it's great that there is a number and that the number isn't implicitly zero because we're not considering it. I would say, however, I think that we're capable of making decisions without monetizing everything, and that would be a better decision rather than turn it into a money value and tuck it in with things that are actually money values. But that's how we're doing it. However, the money value that they've set on it, $21, $35, it's extraordinarily low given the research that is ongoing in climate change, both the climate science research and the climate economics research. And the analysis that I have done on this with other co-authors is that actually, if you begin to take into consideration the kind of really important uncertainties that are involved in these analyses, things that we don't know yet. We may have an idea of the range of possible things that could happen, but we don't know that this one thing will happen. When you begin to consider that range and you incorporate it into that working group's own analysis, that you end up with numbers that are $800, $900, $1,000 at the higher ends of those range, the higher end. And not just $21. And we can't say that the right number for the social cost of carbon is $1,000. That's not the right understanding of that analysis. The correct understanding is that we can't say that it's not. We don't know that it's not $1,000 and that it is 21. There's a good chance that it is $1,000. We don't know. And we should be incorporating that range of possible damages in our decision making and not just, oh, well, we think the best guess is $21. That's not enough information. And that's not how people generally make decisions. We don't make decisions about what we're going to do, what kind of chances we're going to take in our lives or with our families based on, here's the best guess. We'll go with that. And a really good example of this is thinking about fire insurance for your home. So if you think about how do we make a decision? Should we pay for fire insurance? Of course, I think in a lot of places you're required to. But leaving that to one side for a moment, how do we make this choice? Are you going to get some fire insurance or aren't you? Well, I'll tell you that the most likely number of fires that you're going to have in your home is 0. That's the most likely number. So you won't get any fire insurance, right? No, because that's not how we make a decision. We don't make a decision based on this is the most likely. And we don't do that with life insurance either. Right? Saying this is the most likely outcome. We say, well, I want to understand what the risks are, and then I'll make my decision. Same thing with the social cost of carbon, that the $21 is just that most likely. We want to understand and have our decision makers, our policy makers understand what are the risks and make their decisions from there.